It was about 10 years ago, the first time I ever heard Anika Nilles, and this is what I heard. So sassy. Oh, so good. So good. So, if any of you haven't heard that particular performance of Cherry Life in 2015, definitely go check out the whole thing. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to play that much of it on this video. We'll find out. Probably it's fine because I'm not making any money off this video. So, but wow, oh my gosh, that was the first time. That's one of those songs that we all have those songs, performances, those things that send chills down your spine. That make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. This is one of those that I don't listen to it a lot, but when I hear it, it makes me smile and it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And it's a cool song, but it's largely due to her drumming, which in the context of this song. So that's the first time I ever heard Anika Nilles. It's been 10 years. I had to look up the date. I was surprised to see that it was that long ago at this Minor Drum Festival in 2015. And so I've been a fan of Anika's playing for a long time. And I thought, as somebody who's also a drummer and somebody who also has been influenced by Neil Peart, particularly in my youth, going back to, I discovered Neil Peart when Moving Pictures came out. So whatever year that was, I was merely a baby, but that's when I discovered Neil Peart. So I thought it would be kind of fun just to talk about this a little bit. This amazing news that now everyone knows about. I wanted to wait a few days to do this video because I wanted to wait until the news had really gotten out there. I found out about it a bit ago, and just wanted to wait for a bit. And I've been getting texts and from people saying, not that I have any connection to this, but just saying, "Have you heard about this? Have you heard about this?" And it's so cool. People are really excited that Rush is back, that they've found a new drummer. Some of these people that have texted me weren't familiar with Anika Nilles. They didn't know who she was. They were just like, "Have you heard about this drummer? Have you heard about this thing happening with Rush?" So I guess because they knew I was a fan of Rush. So I want to just first say at the very top, congratulations to Anika Nilles. I mean, you've got to take, for any of us that have tried to accomplish anything in life and do anything, you've got to take a moment just to think about for a second. There's this band out there, right? And they have a drummer, and the drummer is considered by many to be the greatest of all time. For sure, he's one of the greatest rock drummers to ever live, for sure. Some people will argue the greatest rock drummer to ever live. And then he's gone, and then the band is gone, and then you find yourself in this situation replacing the greatest drummer of all time. I mean, just imagine the weight of that just for a minute. It's like, wow, I mean, it's up here. It's life-changing experiences, right? So, and then the other thing I wanted to say, other congratulations I wanted to throw out there was to Geddy and to Alex. Because again, me sort of trying to empathize, as I was just doing with Anika, trying to empathize with the position they're in. They've been in this. They've been in this band their whole life. They've written all this music. It's like one of their children. For those of you that create out there, that if you're a creative person, that when you give birth to something, so to speak, it is kind of like it's something that you love and you nurture. Just in the same way that you do people. Sometimes it's I mean, it's different, but it's something that you give yourself to, and it becomes very important to you, and all those things. So they have all this huge catalog of music that they are now going to be able to play again. And every sort of interview I've ever seen with those guys, to me, they seem like guys that they really love playing. I mean, that's when I have seen interviews with them and hear them talk about playing. They love the music and they love playing and they love doing it and they're passionate about it. So I sincerely mean like a congratulations to them for taking this step. It's kind of a bold move, and I just saw, I haven't watched a ton of footage about this. I haven't really dug in online. I'm sure there's a lot of videos about all this, that I'm talking about. But I saw one clip of, in very typical Alex Lifeson fashion, just kind of looking at the camera and going, "We're going back on tour," but he was just beaming, just glowing, with happiness. So that makes me happy because, again, this thing that has been such a huge portion of their life ended with the departure of Neil Peart. I did back when Neil Peart passed away. I did a podcast. I used to have a podcast called the Studio Drummer Chats, and I guess this is kind of an extension of that. It was audio only. I didn't do video back then, but I mean, I did video, but I didn't do a video podcast. But Studio Drummer Chats, and when he passed away, I did a tribute to him. And so, so I won't go too deep into that in terms of how I feel about Neil Peart, but he's definitely been a big influence on my playing, and I love his lyrics, and I love I've always enjoyed Rush. And another thing I thought about. So these are just some random thoughts that I've had as I've been thinking about this and getting these texts, and so it's been on my mind. Is if you're a drummer, imagine the weight of. I don't mean just but imagine the amount of material that Anika Nilles is going to have to learn, even if it's just. I assume it's going to be a 2-hour set, something like that, like 2 hours concert. So let's say that's 20 plus songs, something like that, maybe a little more, somewhere in that neighborhood, give or take. Depending on depends on how long they play and which songs they do. some of their songs are quite long, but that is, to me, like, that's the first thing as a drummer I think is like kind of daunting to think like, wow, I've learned some of their songs. I've taught some of their songs. I've gotten into the real deep nitty gritty with some of Neil's playing. Particularly as I've taught it to other students. So Wow, that's a big, and I got to tell y'all, in my humble opinion, uh, Annika is up to the task. She is up to the task. She's very smart. I mean, I've seen interviews with her, and she's got a good brain. So, but I just, for me, as I think about it, I'm just like, wow, the amount of material she has to learn. It'll also be interesting to see how she approaches it. Is because the first thing you think about with Rush stuff. I mean, even if you're not a drummer, it's like it's one of the immediate things you think about is the drums, and so many of those drum parts are so iconic almost can't imagine anyone straying away from them. But there is a world, and I have no idea how she's going to approach it. But there is a world where you can pay tribute to someone that you're covering, someone that you're playing their parts, and still make it your own. And I would kind of imagine that that's a possibility. I would imagine that I'm being vague here, obviously, because I don't know, but I would imagine she's a very creative drummer. I mean, if for any of you out there that don't know her playing, she sort of came to the forefront with this idea of reconceptualizing quintuplets, and I won't get into that. But check if you're a drummer and you're interested in that, be sure and check it out. But yeah, that's the best way to say it: reconceptualizing quintuplets. And so unique perspective, unique voice, and so I would, and just from what you just heard on that video I just played, I mean, you can tell that that she's just she's full of cool ideas. So I would kind of expect her to kind of put her own thing into it to some degree. To what degree? Who knows? Who knows? I was thinking about a kind of a similar situation when, if you guys have ever seen the Plant Page video when they're doing Kashmir with an Egyptian orchestra. It's in the 90s, I believe. And if you haven't watched it, oh my gosh, go watch it. It's amazing. But this was one of the these kinds of things that's happening with Anika and Rush right now. They don't happen very often. We have a legendary player, and then someone asked to replace that or step in for that legendary player. But this is what made me think of this. This was one of those things, and I was very aware of it as I was watching the video. The drummer that played on that, his name was Michael Lee, and after watching that, it was apparent to me that first of all, he just absolutely slayed on it. Played so well. But he did this beautiful job somehow of paying homage to John Bonham and bringing his own thing. It's a fairly straightforward song. He didn't go crazy with it, but just this beautiful balance, and you can hear it, and commanding the stage and confident in his playing. And so I thought of that in this case because, again, you've got this amazing drummer, Anika Nilles, who's stepping into the drum chair for another legend. And so when I think of Michael Lee in that performance in particular, the whole show's good. But, it can be done. It can be done. So that's a fun thing to think about. How much is is she going to alter, if any, the songs, those kinds of things. That's interesting. Another thing that's, of course, from a drummer's perspective, that's a fascinating thing to think about is what's she going to do kit-wise. I guess let me just step back and just say, as it applies to her sound versus Neil's sound, if someone had, if we'd said, let's play a game, and let's see, let's play a guessing game. Who do you think is going to be the next drummer for Rush? Right? I don't know if I would have thought of Anika Nilles, mainly because I sort of don't associate. I've never heard her. She may be a huge Rush fan for all I know. I don't know, but I've heard interviews with her, and I don't know that I've ever heard her mention Rush or Neil Peart. Maybe she has, but I don't associate them with each other. They're just kind of like disparate worlds. But where they are similar, and this is important, and this is the reason she has the gig, probably. Both Anika and Neil, from what I know, did meet Neil once, but I don't know either one of them personally. They're both very serious drummers. And what I mean by that is they both have spent a lot of time practicing and working and studying and have dedicated their lives to playing the drums. So that's something that they both share in common. And as you know, a lot of us out, I mean, not everyone does that. Okay. They're both very concerned with technique. They're both technical drummers. And they have put in, both of them had and have put in the time to master their technique, Neil, of course, famously changing his technique in his later years. They both love odd time signatures. I can tell you that. If you haven't heard much of Anika's playing, yeah, she loves a good odd time signature. They both appreciate and play very technical music. So there are a fair amount of commonalities between the two of them, even though I consider them very different players. They're not, again, the disparity for me initially, if we'd have played this game of like, who do you think would be a good replacement for Neil Peart? I just wouldn't have necessarily associated it because her sound is very, very different. Her groove is very, very different. Her overall style is very, very different than Neil's. So, I mean, they're just, and this is one of the beautiful things about drumming. In the same way that, Weckel is different from Vinny, they're just completely different animals. Bonham is different from Keith Moon, right? So it's not to say better or worse or anything like that. It's just they're both very different. Anika her playing is really tight and precise. Even in the context of her sound, it's opened up, from what I've heard over the past few years, she's opened up her sound a little bit, but it's always been very tight and precise, which a lot of drummers were doing in particular 10 years ago because, or at least it seemed to me they were doing it to be able to better articulate very, very fast playing. So dead sounds, you can really hear the articulation. If you have ringy, big, open, boomy sounds, a la Bonham, there comes a point where the ringing of an instrument starts, the ringing of the note over to the next note starts to interfere with being able to hear the next note because it's still ringing. So imagine playing on a practice pad versus a floor tom, gum, 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 gum versus tick, 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 tick. So her sound has always, has historically been, from what I've heard, very precise and tight. Her groove is very precise and tight. Neil's sound has always been fairly open, but yeah, fairly open, fairly somewhat ringy, not jazz ringy, but pretty ringy. So that will be interesting to see if she adjusts her sound, how she adjusts her sound, and then of course, what kit she plays. That's wow. They're both. Last I checked, again, I haven't looked this up recently, but last time I checked, Anika was a Tama endorsee, which of course Neil was too. So wow, the possibilities are endless there if she's still a Tama endorsee. So yeah, just that's a fun thing to think about. Like, what is her kit going to be like? Um, so anyway, it's going to also, I think, be really interesting to see how this whole thing is received by Rush fans. And I think for the most part, I think just as I was congratulating Alex and Geddy, I think that the Rush community in general, Rush fans in general, people that see a lot of their concerts, I think they're going to be thrilled to have them back out there, and I think they're going to be thrilled to um, have this younger, fresh breath of fresh air in the band. And I think, again, the one I haven't dug in on this too much, but the one little clip I saw with the one I was referred to earlier with Alex, Getty said something about her being younger and bringing in a fresh ideas and fresh vibe and whatever to the band. And I think that that's going to be really exciting, and I think people are going to show up for it. And so those are just some random thoughts, just things we've probably all been wondering. What kind of kit is she going to play? How is she going to play? Is she going to play it note for note? Is she going to add her own thing? Is she going to change the songs? Who is Anika Nilles? All these things. I just kind of wanted to just talk about it a little bit and congratulate all three of them, and very excited for them, and very interested, looking forward to hearing the output, like what they're gonna, what it's gonna sound like, when they get out there and get on the road. I imagine Annika is pretty. She's pretty prevalent on social media, so I imagine she might even be documenting her learning process. Maybe, I don't know. She's done a lot of tutorial, a lot of lessons, a lot of teaching, a lot of stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if she were throwing out a few things here and there, documenting like how she's going through it. It'd be fascinating to know. I would love to know because again, she's a very well trained and musician who's very smart. I would love to know how she is learning the songs specifically in terms of if she's notating them and how she's going about the process of, say, learning whatever the amount of songs is, if it's 20 songs or something or more, how she's going about that. And I'm sure at some point she'll talk about that. But it is a big undertaking, because there's so many notes in each Rush song, right? And I would imagine that even if she does decide to make some creative changes here and there, she's going to learn. Of course, she's going to learn the way it was before she changes it. Would be my guess. So anyway, very excited about this. Again, congratulations to Anika Nilles. Congratulations to Rush for taking this step. It's just it's a fun, kind of joyous piece of information, here in 2025, and very excited for this. And I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments about all this. Are you excited? Are you already looking for tickets? What do you think she's going to do kit wise? Do you think she's going to do like a Neil Peart? Like, is she going to make a Neil Peart kit? I don't know. Do you think she's going to change her sound to sound more like his, or is she going to bring her sound to the table? And I don't know. One of the big questions might be, do you think she's going to alter the parts at all? That's a big one. And let me just say before I go, she's good enough that she can do what I was talking about earlier with Michael Lee taking over for John Bonham and somehow making it all work, which is again a huge undertaking. She can do that. She's that good. She will do a great job with this, no question. Anyway, love to know what you guys think about this, and talk to you soon.